He is the pus in the wound. Oh, proper ones curl their noses, but it's the pus that drinks foul humours and restores the blood. I worship Peryite, yes, because sometimes the world can only be cleansed by disease. Well said, Kesh the Clean. He somehow managed to make an inspiring statement about the fatality of plague and illness prior to the invention of modern medicine. And this statement nicely sums up who I think we can all agree is the most overlooked Daedric prince in the universe. Maybe it's because mortals don't like to think about the finality of death and just how frail their meat vessels are. Men and mer are susceptible to all manner of biological horrors, and that's on top of all the other horrors associated with a finite existence. No wonder no one cares about Peryite. But perhaps there's a method to Peryite's apparent malevolence. Maybe his role is more important than we give him credit for. After all, it has been said that Peryite is the most affable of the Daedric princes, with the worst reputation. Hey guys, it's Drew here and welcome back to FudgeMuppet. In this video we're going to be showing some love for the Daedric prince who most mortals forget is even a Daedric prince. He's kinda just there, hanging out with one or two deranged and often diseased fanatics. We're going to explore his lore, his purpose, and his understated importance in the natural order of Tamriel. Peryite, also known as the Taskmaster, is the Daedric Prince of Tasks, Natural Order and Pestilence, hardly the most exciting sphere of influence when compared to his compatriots. Peryite is typically depicted to mortals as a small, wily, green, four-legged dragon, and he rules over the Pits, a rather unknown realm of Oblivion which is about as exciting as the name suggests. It is where Peryite guards the lowest orders of Oblivion, and is considered one of the hardest realms to reach for mortals. During the time of the Oblivion Crisis, the realm was accessed by the Champion of Cyrodiil, and records hold that it was similar in appearance to Dagon's Deadlands, with lava seas, volcanic islands, and ruined structures. As far as mortals are concerned, it's hard to blame them for their negative perception of the prince. He's responsible for all plagues which wipe out significant portions of mortal populations. But the aspect of this that is often overlooked, and understandably so, is that to an immortal, to the Taskmaster, a good plague is the equivalent to a bloodletting, the balancing of the humours. It's a means to cleanse some impurities, to thin the herd and weed out the weak. In a sense, it is disease that allows for healthy mortals to persist and strengthen through repopulation. His followers do him no favours, for the few that are well known are not the kind of folks you'd want to be associated with. One group, named the Afflicted, reside in the reach of Skyrim. These worshippers were fortunate enough to receive an infection as a blessing from their prince, which turned their skin red and their spit into noxious neon green venom vomit. Peryite will remain adamant, no matter how severe or visceral, that his blessings are essential for maintaining his natural order. And that is where we have to make an important distinction. The term natural order is not synonymous with social order or manufactured order. To most mortals, order is associated with not killing, not stealing, not doing anything that will have a guard telling you to pay the court a fine or serve your sentence. Natural order is what you see when you leave the city. It's watching the lion break the gazelle's neck because it has to feed the family. Nature is rarely friendly. It's a ton of harsh realities piled on top of each other. It's survival of the fittest and forced adaptation. That is the order Peryite protects. I think this is a big factor in the mortal perception of Peryite as a weak Daedric prince. If a predator kills its prey, that's just nature doing its thing. No one gets credit for that. But in the Elder Scrolls universe, that is Peryite's doing just as much as a drunken brawl is Sanguine's doing. Daedric princes love to take credit, but when it comes to nature, no one thinks of Peryite. On top of that, in order for natural order to be successfully implemented, it needs to be left the hell alone. If an immortal force meddles, as Daedric princes love to do, then the natural order is being disturbed. In order for Peryite's sphere to work, he needs to stay away from mortals and from Mundus, let it do its thing, and only intervene when the circumstances deem it absolutely necessary. Another reason why Peryite is so often overlooked is because of his other area of influence, the completion of tasks. How often do you think about the important day-to-day errands that allow you to live your life? Mortals tend to look up at the most influential thing. They look at the army general, not the individual soldiers who get the job done. That guy who goes down in history as just another number, a nameless casualty despite doing their job perfectly. That's Peryite. I'm not trying to be Peryite's adoring fan, I swear. I'm just drawing attention to something that's easily overlooked. But basically, Peryite's areas of expertise are inherently forgotten, for they aren't the forces that change the world in grand dramatic fashion, they are the underlying forces that keep the cogs turning. Peryite as the taskmaster ensures that everyone has a role, even the lowliest serf. So when a brave, resilient family in rural Cyrodiil toils away in the fields, burning in the midday sun, not giving up despite how tough their lives are, think of old Perry. No one cares about those labourers, but they harvest the wheat, which in turn feeds the county and keeps the economy chugging along healthily. In many regards, he's the polar opposite to his fellow Prince Sanguine, who I spoke about in detail recently. Sanguine would have mortals drink themselves into oblivion, while Peryite would have them doing their duties. Without the worker ants, the colony dies off. I talked about pestilence earlier in the video, and this is the aspect of Peryite that is most well known. In a literal sense, this aspect of his power is what mortals come down with when they die of blood rot or the blight. But in relation to his other spheres, pestilence can really be associated with just about anything that threatens the natural order. If Mehrunes Dagon provokes his followers to destroy the Imperial City and plunge the province into chaos, allowing thousands of mortals to die by an unnatural immortal force leaking from Oblivion gates, is that not in Peryite's best interest to stop at the source? The Daedra cannot be killed, and they are aliens to the mortal realm, so anything they do on Tamriel is intrinsically unnatural. With this in mind, it really knocks the legs out from under the theory that Peryite is the most evil. Yes, the Thrashan Plague and the Nahaten Flu are his work, but every time a Daedric prince is thwarted, it could also be his work to an extent too. Most Daedric princes want to mess with mortals, while Peryite simply wants to allow nature to run its course. Pus isn't pretty, and it smells foul, but it is the residue of a wound being cleansed and healed. There is an amusing, albeit morbid, account from a Breton researcher in his experiments and attempts to please the Prince Peryite, and it ends up displaying a pretty fatal flaw in his logic. The researcher and his associates carried out experiments on ogres and giants in a secluded cavern. They artificially infected them with a disease of their own design. It slowed wits, drove the subjects into fits of rage, it brought them out in rashes and covered them in translucent distended boils. All the while the researcher was living with his own fatal ailment, as his limbs and facial features began to rot off. Shortly before his death he says, "I do not question Lord Peryite's will, I do not. He knows I have been loyal, faithful. I see the vision of his ordered world, and I revel in it. A land filled with corpses, rotting, resplendent. A new age shall come, a new order will come, all under my lord's banner. Mother will regret the day she spurned me. I wish to keep recording, of course, but it's getting a bit trickier to write since my third finger fell off. I fear this may be my last entry, but what shall it matter? I can see no way our plan can fail. No one can overcome the will of the Prince of Pestilence, and all shall know his blessing." This devoted Daedra worshipper sounds wholly convinced that his conviction to the cause will somehow grant him the opportunity to meet Peryite, or perhaps experience salvation from him. But his martyrdom is executed without so much as a word from the taskmaster. That's because he does not meddle. If a fool decides to unnecessarily create a plague simply for the thrill of it, that hardly contributes to Peryite's natural order. The mad researcher getting himself killed is a fitting reward for his work. The final talking point with this prince is his Daedric artifact, and on first impression it's difficult to see how such a powerful relic relates to the taskmaster. Peryite's only artifact is named Spellbreaker. It is a dwarven tower shield with the uncanny ability to protect against not only physical strikes, but also spells. It wards off onslaughts of sorcery, it dispels curses and can even silence mages. The shield longs for its original owner. The shield was supposedly created in the Dwemer Forges by Clan Rorken, the same clan who forged and threw Volendrung, Malakath's artifact, across the continent to Hammerfell. It is a mystery how these two dwarven creations became affiliated with their respective Daedric princes, but Spellbreaker, after the disappearance of the Dwemer, has always been under Peryite's control. Did the Dwemer create some of their artifacts with assistance from immortals? Did they steal the power from the immortals? Helping a race create a shield certainly seems out of character for the taskmaster. The first known instance of Peryite bestowing Spellbreaker on someone was to a dragon priest during the First Era. Her name was Zarn the Scalecaller, and when she was abandoned by her dragon lord, she turned to Peryite. It has been used various times throughout history to break curses, but unlike many princes and their artifacts, the crossover between this dwarven shield and the Prince of Pestilence is far from obvious. But there you have it guys, the Daedric Prince of Tasks, the Natural Order, and Pestilence. Peryite will never be in the spotlight. His influence comes from being overlooked. Everything that can be considered natural, from a bear shitting in the woods to a plague that threatens an entire populace, all of this serves a purpose, and in order for the natural balance to be kept in check, Peryite must work tirelessly without credit or appreciation. I hope you enjoyed the video guys, maybe you learned a little something and have another Daedric Prince to add to your list of favourites. I certainly have a soft spot for this underrated lord. Thanks so much for watching, I've been Drew and I will see you next time.